Hey everybody, it's Wicked Jelly. Welcome back to my channel. Hope you all have been well. Gonna go ahead and get started here once again. Finally got through the classes. It took so long. Oh my. Well, just getting used to this. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I mean, I had fun talking about it. It actually got me thinking about a few things, and quite honestly, just doing this, I've learned some more stuff about the game that I didn't pay attention to or overlooked. So it's even, benefiting me. Plus, I can't wait to get started. But the next thing I'm going to do here is we're just going to talk about some of the rules, not all of them. Some of them will make more sense when we're actually playing the game, so it wouldn't really matter to go over it all right now, anyways. But there are some key points that I'd like to make sure that you're well aware of, especially considering there's a couple things here that I honestly believe I misread or overlooked that actually probably would have made my experience trying to solo it with the two classes I told you did probably a lot easier. But again, probably should make sure that we know what game we're talking about here, even though you can see the screen. It's Folklore the Affliction by Greenbrier Games. Great game, and without further ado, let's go and take a look at some of those rules that I just want to point out. So there's three major roles in the game. So you can pretty much share them between the players, just kind of switch it off so everybody feels just as involved. Uh, you wouldn't necessarily have to do that with the second two if you don't want to. You could just have the same person handle that if you'd feel more comfortable just having one person do it. Technically, you could even do that with the first one, but I, to me, it would be a little more interesting with other players to kind of switch it up. So that way, everyone at least feels that they can have a real say in it. Because at the end of the day, whoever the leader is, they're the one that makes the final decisions for the group when it comes to anything. But hopefully, you got a team player. I mean, I don't know. Otherwise, why would you be playing this with them? But, one way or another, there's a token that you switch between players to show, who is the leader. And then, of course, it would be the next person that was going to be the leader, that would be the controller. And then the last one is the narrator. So the leader, pretty much self-explanatory. They're the one that makes the final decisions. And they move the players on the world map. I guess more than anything else, maybe you could say that they, depending on where they move, the characters could maybe possibly affect some things, but I don't know. I really don't see that being that big of a deal. But, anyways, the controller is the one that pretty much, you know, places and controls the enemies during any combats, rolling for the enemies, things of that nature. So, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, and I believe the next thing here, we'll just go over real quick about the narrator, and then I'll be able to show you that token, talk a little bit more about that. Okay, yeah, and right here, basically says a narrator. Oh, I guess it says to pick one for the story. I don't know, if you're switching up the other ones, though, why wouldn't you just switch this one up? But anyways, they pretty much just say all the lines that are meant to be said out loud. There's the token. It's actually one token. One and two are the same token within itself, just a piece of cardboard. The big thing about it is the reason it is light on one side and dark on the other is when it's on the light side, then of course that means it's daytime. And when it's flipped over and on the darker side, that means that it's dark. And then you have the third marker there, and that's just the piece that you would move along on the map board, excuse me, as your group progresses across the map. And probably show that a little bit later on here, just to so you have an idea of what it looks like. Okay, and then a character, like it says, can only carry up to 8 items or artifacts. They can only, that's the most they can hold at any one time, unless you have an enhancement. Consumables, they're not included in this limitation, and if you to go over capacity when receiving a card, you must immediately trade the card to another character or discard it. Um, I don't even understand that. It just says that you don't have a limit on it. um, yeah. Okay. Well, anyways. So basically, the way it works with that is the only limitation you really could see is if, there's only 4 healing potions in the game and you wanted to get one, but um, all those tokens are gone, then that essentially means they're sold out of that item. So, I mean, that would be how that works. Then the other thing is more or less just the 2 types of abilities, which I kind of talked about already. Passive ones. Those ones, they don't require power points. The only reason it even has anything there is it lets you know how many points you would need to actually learn that ability, and then the active ones tells you how many power points it costs to activate that ability. So, pretty straightforward. And speaking about things that I missed, you have this for when you're soloing 2 character games. Um, or, actually, even if you are just using yourself and one other person. However, somehow I missed this. I did not do this when I was playing it, and man, it would have made things a little easier to get done. Gives you a little bit of an advantage, which makes sense because there's only 2 of you. So it's kind of already more difficult to begin with. Even though I will say, depending on how many players you have, along with characters, it does increase the number of enemies or even how difficult those enemies are. But regardless, when you just have 2, it can be really tough. Especially when you're talking about rolling dice. Rolling dice can be very random, and also very frustrating, especially if you have really bad rolls when it seems like for you, and then all of a sudden you're rolling crits for the bad guys all the time. But anyways, yeah. So if you're playing it with 2 characters, which is what I should have done, and we will do, you want to make sure you give each character an extra bandage. Um, then also you want to make sure that each character has a random animal or militia companion card, only if the character has a free companion slot. Um, which you start off with 2 companion slots. Every character has that. So in the beginning, that's not even going to be a concern. Um, and the nice thing is, this happens for every story, so it's ongoing. But we'll get into that more a little bit later. And then each character starts off with a random boon, so which is also really cool. And then of course it says only if you have fewer than 2 boons currently in your possession. So that's nice. So I don't know. This might be a really nice playthrough. I might not get owned. All right, let's go on to the next item here. All right. So a few things here. Two-handed. There's some two-handed weapons that you can get in the game. I remember the Witch Hunter even started off with a two-handed crossbow. So if you are using a two-handed weapon, you can always roll the damage dice twice and take the higher result, which is pretty cool. That's not too shabby being able to do that. The one thing I will say is, and it's definitely something I noticed with the crossbow, is ranged weapons, they use ammo. So there's only so many times that you can use it in a battle, in combat. So that can be not the greatest thing in the world if that's the only weapon you have. So definitely want to bear that in mind. Although, if I remember correctly, I don't think it takes too long before you can get some other weapons. But I mean, with the Witch Hunter, he doesn't start off with anything else. So once he uses up his crossbow bolts, the best he can do is go in and fight with his fists, which you can do. But then you only get the damage on your card, which I think for him was like +1. So yeah, not the greatest. So, and I'll point it out when we get to one of those cards. You'll see on there it'll have blocks that count. I think for him it had either 3 or 4 blocks for the crossbow. So one-handed, if you're using one-handed one, you can also take a second chance of hitting the person, doing additional damage, but you got to spend a power point to do it. Oh wait, no, that's not even remotely right. It's if you hold a second weapon, if you're like fighting with 2 different weapons. Um, so yeah, I don't know if that's really worth it, but I mean, I guess maybe for some people they might disagree. Um, Seems kind of a waste of power points to me. But as far as abilities go, if they do not have the hourglass icon, which I'm sure you may have noticed that when we were looking at those ones that's starting for players, that some of them did indeed have that. That basically means if they have that hourglass in there, then they can use them at any time, even when another player's taking their turn. Um, and if they are able to be used in a skirmish, it'll say it on the card. If it doesn't say that on there, then you can't use it when you're in a skirmish. So, and the last thing is consumable items. They can be used at any time and as many as you wish during your activation. So, so if you're activated and for some reason you have 3 bandages and you want to use all 3 of them, you can go ahead and do that when it's your turn. So that pretty much covers everything that we got there. Okay, the last thing we're going to talk about here is movement and what happens as far as resting. So once per chapter, leader may decide to have the group rest. They may do this while traveling on the world map or while adventuring. And whenever that happens, all characters immediately recover 4 Vita, 4 power points, or 4 ghost points, up to the maximum, of course. And then the leader rolls a d10. On a 1, 2, or 3, the group must skirmish by rolling on the chapter's skirmish table. Every single chapter has like their own skirmish table. We'll be getting into that shortly when we start the first chapter. And then basically just going over road movement. You move up to the leader's stride value. You know, bridges are considered a road space. When you go off-road, you really can only move one off-road space at a time. We'll be showing the map here as far as how that goes. And whenever that happens at the end of the turn when you're on the road, then you would draw a road card, which leads to some type of event. And if you're off-road, same deal, you'd be drawing an off-road card. So basically just says some more things there about resting and whatnot too, but it's pretty common sense. So really at this point that covers up all the rules that I think needed to be discussed separately. So pretty much at this point what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be setting up my playthrough. I am going to try it again with the Exorcist and the Avenging Madman, simply because, number one, I think I know a lot more right now, and number two, I did not realize that I kind of gimped myself when I was playing those classes, because I did not give myself any of those extra items that you're supposed to if you only have 2 players. So, gonna try doing that. I'm going to be using like I said, the Exorcist and the Avenging Madman. When we get in here the next time, I'll basically go over real quick what I've picked as far as my boons and my companions and that. It is random, so I'm just going to pick it ahead of time though and just basically get right into it, and then we can start actually playing the game. And we'll take it from there. I'm going to see how it works as far as using the map and doing the cards. I have a couple ideas of how I'm going to do it, but we'll see. We'll give it a shot, see how it goes. Again, this is Folklore, the Affliction. My name is Wicked Jelly, and I want to thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!